Good afternoon. Welcome to the August 27th update on Hurricane Ida and Tropical Storm Nora. Yes, I will be covering Nora first, but as always, these thoughts are mine alone, and in making decisions regarding Ida and Nora, please refer to your local government, the National Hurricane Center, and your local National Weather Service office for all the official and best information for your particular area. Especially with Ida, if you hear from your local government that you need to evacuate, heed those evacuation warnings. This is very serious. But first, we're going to talk about Tropical Storm Nora here. You can see Tropical Storm Nora to the south and west of Mexico. You can see Ida here entering the Gulf of Mexico here. We're going to talk about Nora first. So, if we look at the true color loop of Nora here, you can see that we have a pretty well-defined lower level circulation. It had been struggling for a little bit here, trying to form a lower level circulation. This is due to the massive size of the system here. You can see this massive influx of southwesterly wind into the system and a very large moisture pool here, and it's expanding outflow out to the north and east. And this is in a pretty healthy environment here. There's a little bit of dry air in this part. You can see the lack of cumulus clouds to the north of this system, but it's pretty well embedded in a rather favorable moisture bubble here. You can see how expansive this moisture bubble is to the north, and it's going to be moving generally off to the northwest. And the reason that I'm covering this is because there are hurricane watches and tropical storm watches up for the bulk of the southwestern Mexican coastline here, and it also could come up and impact the Gulf of California. It's an unusual system and has an unusual track that may be the first of its kind, actually, because we have had systems come up and affect Cabo, but typically they will go into the Baja California Peninsula if they do. But this could actually turn a little bit off to the east and go through the Gulf of California, which is a very rare track. And you can see that here on the National Hurricane Center forecast. You can see that it turns to the northwest and then turns back off to the west here and actually goes up the spine of the Bay of California here, or the Gulf of California. And you can see the hurricane watches in effect for the southwestern Mexican coastline, and we will have hurricane watches likely in effect here pretty soon along the southern parts of the Baja California and the northwest Mexican coastline here. So if you're in Mexico and you are in this region, please do be watching this system, as it is a massive system. You can see this very large tropical storm force wind field. This is all gale force winds in excess of 40 miles per hour here, and this is only going to remain this big. And so this is a very large system, going to dump a lot of rain, and regardless of what happens with the exact intensity, bottom line is flooding and mudslides here. And maybe if it's on the coast here, then probably looking at a pretty decently strong hurricane here as it comes off to the north. But it is a larger system, so it'll take a little bit longer to consolidate and develop a really central inner core, and it has taken a while to get to where it is right now, so I wouldn't expect any rapid intensification like what we were about to see with Hurricane Ida here. But that's all I got on Nora. Let's get to Ida here. If we go back to the Atlantic Loop, you can see very clearly here is Ida now about to cross Cuba. A lot has happened today. Remember yesterday we were talking about a pretty minimal tropical storm that was kind of up in the air about whether or not it would be organized by this time. Well, we had recon go into the system as it was moving towards the Isle of Youth, and within the time that the recon mission was there, so about 4 hours, it dropped 10 millibars, and we had a hurricane confirmed by the recon data. And we currently have recon about an hour and a half or so away as of the recording of this video, but right now, due to the fact that the National Hurricane Center just uploaded the latest advisory, I'm going to go ahead and record here. And if we look closer at Ida here, this is the visible loop showing the beginning to be more defined core here. You can see convection trying to wrap around here, and this has been a problem for the system all day, whether or not it will be able to really close off this core and develop a rather solid core, and it's looking like that is increasingly likely here. And a couple of wrinkles in the intensity forecast for the near term, and you can tell that this is not really affecting the system too much. There's a bit of southwesterly flow a lot, or in the mid levels, that is being shot out of the storm, and that has delayed the southwestern eye wall from really developing, but you can see now that deep convection is wrapping around this up shear side of the eye wall, indicating that the system will likely wrap around this very dense ring of convection here, and very deep ring of convection, and we will likely see an intercore structure develop some point after it crosses Cuba here. There may be a little bit of a disruption in the core as it crosses Cuba. There's not really high mountains here. There is a little thin mountain range right around the northwestern coast here, but other than that, it's pretty flat, and this is not terrain like you see in Hispaniola or eastern Cuba here. So this storm has lucked out in terms of land interaction, and so this is very unfortunate news for those on the north central Gulf Coast. And here, if we look at the microwave imagery, this is from about a couple hours ago. You can see this is as it is crossing the Isle of Youth. You can see this band, this very thick band of convection trying to wrap around and close off this eye structure. And it should be tightening as this process progresses. And you're probably going to see a eye here that closes off at around 20 nautical miles wide. And so this will be a very well-defined structure as it completes, and the storm is able to really going to get going after this completes here. And really, the only wrinkle in the intensity forecast is how soon this completes, how soon this eye structure completes, because you can see that the convection in this developing eye structure here is very deep, and so it would likely be able to rapidly intensify regardless of any negative impacts at this point, and those negative environmental conditions are quickly vanishing. If we look at the water vapor loop over the Gulf of Mexico, you can see that upper level trough that we've been talking about for the past several days is now back here, and the remaining southwesterly flow that has been pushing into Ida is beginning to decrease and come more out of the south because of the system's outflow. You can see the outflow beginning to expand off to the south and west of the system here, and that is indicating a more healthy upper level environment for Ida here. And you can also see Nora's outflow encroaching upon Ida here. But due to the fact that Ida has become significantly stronger than what the National Hurricane Center and what models had forecasted, this outflow that you're seeing expand out of Ida will likely provide enough of a buffer here as it comes up to prevent Nora's outflow from really displacing this upper level anticyclone. So really, at this point, the shearing aspect that would be a part of the intensity forecast as it comes close to the coast is looking less and less likely as time goes along. And so essentially what we're going to be dealing with here is a very favorable environment for continued intensification and organization all the way up to landfall. And this is very, very bad news. And the National Hurricane Center has caught on to this and now forecasts a major hurricane making landfall here, a Category 4 currently, according to the National Hurricane Center, with winds of 140 miles per hour. And this may, unfortunately, be a conservative estimate here. And this is about as bad as it gets if you're in Louisiana right now. And there are hurricane warnings all the way from Morgan City all the way to the Mississippi Louisiana border here. So if you're within this region and the hurricane warnings are on top of you, you need to be heeding the evacuation orders that your local government has given to you, because it's not just the surge. If you're safe from the surge, it doesn't matter, because the wind is going to be just as bad. These winds are going to likely be in excess of 140 miles per hour with gusts higher than that, and you really do not want to stay and see if you can survive that, because it's almost impossible to survive something like that. This is about as bad as it gets for this region. The danger of this situation cannot be overstated at this point. This is, again, about as bad as it gets for this part of the coast here. If we look at the surge graphics here, they're just updated by the National Hurricane Center here, you can see that even though the track is likely to go into Morgan City or somewhere in here along this area, most of the surge will be on the eastern side of the system. You can see water rises on the other side here near Sabine Pass all the way to Morgan City here, about 2 to 9 feet of storm surge here. That's pretty significant for Vermilion Bay, Intracoastal City, and Pecan Island here. Definitely very significant surge here, but this is nowhere near as bad as what is going to be on the eastern side of the system. You can see 7 to 11 feet near the Mississippi Delta region and Lake Pontchartrain and New Orleans here, and 10 to 15 feet along a pretty significant stretch of the coast, stretching from Morgan City to the mouth of the Mississippi River. And this surge value may go up, it may go down, and really the bottom line here is that this surge is going to be very high, and this is 10 to 15 feet of water, and waves are going to be on top of that water. So if you're in this surge zone, you need to leave. This is very, very serious. And you can see that water rises even extend all the way to the Alabama-Florida border here. If you're not necessarily in the hurricane-warned area, you definitely are still going to be experiencing water rises. It's not just limited to where the core comes ashore, and this is going to be a larger system than normal here. We'll get to that in a minute, but this is going to have very widespread effects regardless of where exactly it makes landfall. Obviously, where exactly it makes landfall is very much important for the areas that could be affected immediately along the coast and where exactly the surge ends up. But as far as overall impacts here, you need to be preparing regardless, and these preparations should be rushed to completion at this point. We only have about 2 days until our system begins to affect the area here. If we go to the Weather Prediction Center forecast for rainfall, you can see that as the system is turning here, because it will slow down as it turns off to the north and then off to the northeast here, you can see significant rainfall totals outlined in red and pink here. This is in excess of 10 inches of rain here in this general area, with some areas that could receive up to 15 inches of rain closer to the core of the storm. And this would be on top of all the surge and all the wind that is already going to be happening here. So if you're in this area, this is going to be a multi-day event, because as the system turns, it's going to take a little bit. This is probably going to be sitting over this area for about 24 hours here. You can see, actually, go back to the National Hurricane Center forecast. These are 12-hour differences here. There's 2 a.m. Sunday, or 2 a.m. Monday here. 2 p.m. Monday, you can see it barely moves within this 12-hour period, and it's going to be dropping very heavy rain as the bands over that are part of the system will likely still be coming onshore, and there will still be winds coming onshore and likely producing very heavy rain, potentially life-threatening flash flooding here along the central Louisiana to eastern Louisiana coastline here, and well inland too. We go back to the Weather Prediction Center forecast here. This is pretty far inland. This is into Mississippi here, and you definitely need to be watching out for that. Remember, turn around, do not drown here. This is very serious, and please do be taking that into consideration as well, because impacts will not just be confined to the coast, they will be well inland too. Flash flooding and even winds are still very serious well inland given the strength of this system. Now, if we look at the timing of the tropical storm force winds, you can see all this probability outlined in red and orange and then pink for the 100% chance of tropical storm force winds. You can see Sunday morning is when these potentially dangerous conditions begin here. And although the landfall time is later, the storm size will be much larger, and so that you will likely be experiencing the conditions for multiple hours here in advance of the actual core coming ashore. And if you look at the 3-day forecast again, you can see that this makes landfall around 2 to 3 p.m. on Sunday here. And that's finicky depending on where exactly it ends up along this track forecast here, because it could take a little bit more time. You see 2 a.m. Monday. If it comes ashore a little bit to the west, then that would mean that there's later landfall here and you're in these conditions for longer before the core. If it comes a little east, then it would be a little earlier. And really, this is a matter of hours here in terms of time over water and how much this is going to be able to do to a given area. But these tropical storm force winds, regardless of where exactly it ends up, are going to be arriving around Sunday morning here. Once you wake up, you're probably going to be in these more serious conditions here, and conditions will be deteriorating throughout the day Sunday until the core comes ashore. And even on Saturday, you may be experiencing some squalls as the system moves off to the north here. This is likely to start really hitting the Louisiana coast probably around Sunday or late Saturday night into early Sunday morning, and then obviously the bulk of the system will be between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. But regardless of what you may think, you can survive here. This is currently forecast to make landfall as a high-end Category 4 hurricane, and it has been a very long time since southeastern Louisiana has gotten hit by a hurricane of this magnitude. Hurricane Katrina went to the east here and made landfall along the Mississippi Delta and then hit Gulfport as a Category 3 hurricane with winds of 125 miles per hour. Hurricane Laura made landfall well to the west here as a Category 4 with winds of 150 miles per hour. And we have not had a Category 4 hurricane make landfall in this area for a very long time. And so, if you're in this region and you have not experienced Katrina or Laura or even Zeta from last year, then you need to be aware that this is a very, very serious situation. And when your local government tells you to evacuate, they mean it. And the stress of the situation cannot be overstated here. This is a very difficult forecast to watch and very difficult to imagine what could possibly happen. But if you are in a surge zone and you are told to leave, you absolutely have to leave. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this, because this is borderline unsurvivable here. So, that's all I've got for now. I'll be back with another video tomorrow discussing the final approach of Ida here. That's all we have. Thanks for watching.